Hello, and welcome to the 2025-2026 Student Member of the Board Town Hall. My name is Brendan Wren, and I'm the Charles County Associations of Student Council's president. I would like to introduce you to both of our candidates tonight, Abhijeet of North Point High School and Munachi Abunala of La Plata High School. Hello, how are you both?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Great to know. Today's town hall will have questions submitted by you, the students of Charles County secondary schools. This is not a debate. The town hall is for you to hear the voices of the candidates and get to know their opinions. I will have some questions for you all to answer, and I will alternate between both of the candidates alike. Are you all ready?
Absolutely.
Great to hear. Alrighty, Abhijeet, what inspires you to run for this opportunity?
So I think my inspiration for this role goes all the way back to 8th grade. That's when I first found out about this position that really sparked my journey to come here. Since the beginning of high school, I've been involved in SMOB, and that all roots from this one experience. During my 8th grade year, post quarantine, I didn't know what SMOB was, and I didn't know anything about student leadership except the fact that we lived in a county that didn't recognize student voices, or at least I thought. During Amira's term, when I first found out about the student member of board, that really sparked my interest because I didn't know students could actually compete or participate in the policies that are made in this district. So when her term went through and she was elected, I tried to get myself as involved as I could, and that continued through. I joined the advisory council and I have twice now, and I plan to continue. So that moment of her running and me participating, that really sparked my interest.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, same question for you. What inspired you to run for this opportunity?
So it's always been important to me to make an impact in my community and my environment, just because there are so many ways that you can make change and advocate for change. And oftentimes you don't really know how exactly to do it. So when I heard about the student member of the board position, I thought it would be an amazing position to try and get, just because it is the easiest way to make change in your community, and it is one of the highest leadership positions you can achieve at a county level. So because of that, I thought it would just be an amazing experience, and I just thought it would be a really interesting thing to do because I do have so many ideas to make schools better and just so many ideas to change and help students. And in addition to that, I only moved to Charles County last year, and during that time, I faced a lot of struggles just with like the transition and everything. So I do have a lot of ideas to help students not only with that transition of coming into new schools, which is something that isn't talked about as much, but many other new ideas to help students as well. So that was what inspired me, just to make change and help others. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Question number 2. Munachi, how will you budget your time to ensure this role is a priority?
So as you're getting older, you will see yourself have a lot of like big responsibilities. And I think that it's very important to know how to schedule yourself and balance these different responsibilities. Like, for example, my mother is my biggest inspiration, and I know she is currently a nurse. She's currently in school to further her education, and she even has 3 kids. And I watch her divide her time equally and be able to have time and ensure that she does everything to the best of her ability. So just like she does, and I sure do every day, I know that I have that potential as well to be able to make sure I have time for every single thing I decide I want to get myself involved in. And I think that's not a matter of cutting off things you do. It's a matter of scheduling yourself and having an agenda to make sure you stick to what you do. Because a big issue as to why students, well, not just students, but just people in general, can't like budget time well is that you procrastinate and you don't get things done as soon as you could. And I think the thing with me is that I don't really allow myself to let my work pile up and to like put it off as much because for one thing, it makes me kind of anxious to see like work get piled up, and I don't like to let other people down. So I'm very confident that I'll be able to properly budget myself, my time and everything, just with proper scheduling and using an agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, how will you budget your time to ensure this role is a priority?
So I think what Munachi said was beautifully worded, and I'd like to add on to that. I think personally that time management is a value thing, or there should be balance to it. I find for me personally, I'm a get it done with, get it over with kind of person. And if anyone knows anything about this role, we know how long the meetings are, how much time you have to put to this role. So up until now, I have balanced everything to fit it for an easier schedule next year. So I have less academic stress and more focus on student leadership to getting my work done with ASAP so I don't have to worry about it stacking up. So
Great, great. Thank you both. How do you intend to ensure that student voices in CCPS are heard so that they may have a say in what happens in Charles County? How would you effectively gather their opinions? Abhijeet?
So, one of my biggest priorities in this position is communication. I think one of our biggest downfalls in Charles County is a lack of communication to students. While I think CCPS does a great job, I think it getting across is the issue. So, at the moment, I'm taking feedback through forums, which has been super successful. I've been getting many great ideas from people's opinions on lunches to school safety to even the drug issue, not just in our schools, but nationwide. I like to introduce something similar to that where students don't necessarily have to come directly to the Board of Education to speak in front of them because we all know we all get that cold sweat when coming to talk in front of a huge crowd. So I'd absolutely want to introduce something like an open mic night somewhere where students could submit questions or not even have to worry about having an audience around them, but still get their feedback directly to the Board of Education.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, how do you intend to ensure that the student voices in CCPS are heard so that they may have a say in what happened in Charles County? How would you gather them effectively?
So I currently have been very active on my campaign Instagram, and I've been taking like submissions through a Google Doc, like Abby said. But in addition to that, I know not everybody has proper access to technology when they get home, and they may not have a phone that's working, or their Wi-Fi may be cut off. So to make sure I can hear like everybody's voice, whether it's a middle schooler or like a middle schooler might not have a phone, or just a high schooler, I wanted to launch something called Unmuted, and I'm hoping that with this, I'd be able to send it through Synergy and like have everybody have access to it. And it would just be monthly meetings. I think that's what I have planned to be able to hear the input of students all across and all across the whole county, so they could submit things that they want to see and change they want to see, and I'd be able to touch on that and advocate on those issues. So yeah, that's how I plan to make sure everybody's heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, what are your ideas on improving school climate, such as student morale and improving student involvement? Munachi.
So I think that a big thing is that it's really expensive to be involved in school. And you have, like, I know athletes, they have a lot of things they have to pay for, and there may not be as much funding going into those things. And not only that, when you join a club, you have to pay for a lot of things as well. So I think that if we were able to, as a county, decrease the cost of several things, like just aid students more when it comes to being active in their extracurriculars in their community, that would be a very helpful thing. And not only that, I think that oftentimes students don't know the benefit of actually being involved in their school and how helpful it will be to not only them to increase their character, but to other people around them. So I think that students are more aware of the benefits that come with being involved and being actively engaged in their school community. It would help a lot with student engagement and student morale. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, what are your ideas on improving school climate, such as student morale and improving student overall involvement?
So I totally agree that finances can be an issue in a lot of schools. I know a really big thing for a lot of juniors and seniors is having a great prom. And I think it's what you make of it personally, but a lot of people may disagree. Other than that, I think stress is one of the biggest influences on your morale and how you go to school. I see so many students who, well, at the beginning of the year, they were dressing up all excited for school, now don't even have the energy to do that because they're lacking that morale, that energy, because they're burnt out. Second quarter hits and you're just out of it. So, personally, I would like to focus on better mental health resources. And I know we do a phenomenal job. Again, lack of communication, especially with the whole Hazel therapy thing. But I definitely want to help with like the whole counselors and helping students build better agendas and getting their stuff done with so they don't have less stress and less buildup at the end of the quarter or end of the um, semester.
Thank you. What are your ideas on improving school climate, such as improving student behavior? Abhijeet?
Again, this goes back to therapy. Even today, I walked in on a school fight. So that says a lot. Or didn't walk in, but it was a meeting today and I accidentally interrupted. My bad. Um, But I think a lot of this has to do with things that are going on behind the scenes. I see so many students resorting to drugs, vaping, smoking, things of that nature. And while it may be a combination of school stress and at home stress, I think at the end of the day we need to start focusing on recognizing these early on instead of jumping straight to suspension. One of my biggest things is prevention instead of suspension.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, what are your ideas on improving school climate, such as student behavior?
So I really want to focus on a restorative justice program rather than just suspensions for students because oftentimes when students are repeatedly getting suspended, it doesn't really have an effect on them. And not to say that they don't care, but just that oftentimes when students are repeatedly acting up or doing something bad, a suspension isn't really what they may need. And I think that if we focus on making sure students actually understand that their actions have an impact on not only on their community and themselves as well, it would help a lot with student behavior. Because when you are repeatedly acting up or maybe just doing something wrong, you have to fully understand what you've done wrong to truly make an improvement and to truly change. Which is why I really want to focus on advocating for restorative justice rather than just suspensions for students. Thank you.
Thank you. What do you think the biggest issue in Charles County Public Schools faces, and do you have any idea on how to fix it? Munachi.
So I think that the biggest issue we have is that students aren't really sure what resources they have access to, or they're not aware of what resources they have access to. Because I know that our county offers like very many resources for students. Obviously, we could still expand on that, but I know I've talked to so many people, and I know a lot of people are struggling with their mental health, and they had no idea that Charles County even offered free therapy, the Hazel therapy, I believe that's what it's called. They had no idea about that. And in addition to that, I think recently we have an SAT program that students can enroll in. But again, a lot of students don't know about that. And not only just those two things, they also don't know about the free tutoring. And those are three fundamental things that could really help students and really help them excel not only in their education but emotionally and academically. And if students were just made more aware of those resources that are there to help them, they'd be able to perform a lot better. And not only just knowing about the resources, but expanding upon these resources and making them better so that our students' performances can just get better and better. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, What do you think the biggest issue is Charles County Public School faces? And do you have any idea on how to fix it?
So I'm gonna double down on this one again. I'm so sorry, but if you go back to my Instagram post, you can see one of my first claims is that I think Charles County lacks communication with students, and we spend so much money, so much time on all these resources, from the Hazel Health to the Apex Learning free tutoring SAT, which was just recently brought back. I think not even like 3 4 days ago. I know before that we had it was like a different learning program through a different software. I don't remember, but it got shut down. And no one in Charles County is putting money and allocating them correctly towards resources that we can use as students, but students aren't aware of them. I know I got at least 5 6 DMs, like maybe yesterday, the day before, about the Apex Learning and how can I use this for college? Like, is this really important? Like, people hear about SATs, but like, okay, how do I take the SAT? What do I need to know for the SAT? There's just a lack of communication. One way I'd like to fix it is by implementing ideas that counties like Montgomery are doing with the SMOB monthly minute. I like to take a minute out of every single classroom at least once a month to communicate the board's decisions directly to the students, because that way there shouldn't be a communication barrier if it's getting directly to your first block class immediately at the start of the day, so you already know.
Thank you. Now, what will you do to improve student safety in CCPS? Abhijeet.
This is also one I'm really passionate about. I am not a strong believer that over policing is the correct option in schools. We've seen countless times that over policing has done negatives in schools, and while some people may believe that we need more officers in schools to keep guns out or weapons out of the building to keep a student safer, I don't believe that's the right route. I think recognizing that when students are in situations where they can't make the fully thought out decisions that they should, we should recognize that early, from like dropping grades from average, or like maybe in class violence, things like that, to recognize them early and then um, intercept.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, what will you do to help improve student safety in CCPS?
So I actually outlined this in my campaign. I wanted to start something called the Protect Ed Initiative, and that would focus on issues that I feel like aren't really talked about student safety, such as sexual harassment that happens really frequently to students at schools. Not like really frequently, but it's an issue that isn't touched on as much as it should be. Not only that, but homelessness and the suicide rates in students, stuff like that, that I don't think are is talked about nearly enough as it should, as not to say common, but just as like prevalent as it is in teenagers and students our age. So I think that one thing, especially for the rising suicide rates in students, is to have more confidentiality when it comes to visiting your counselor and just talking about an issue. Because oftentimes, when a student goes to talk to their counselor, they might just not go because they're scared that that information will be relayed back to their parents, or it might lead to hospitalization or something like that. That's just going to make their situation worse rather than relieve stress and just issues for relieve issues for the student. And not only that, if we have more resources for our students, that will again increase their academic and emotional well-being tremendously, because when you're stressing about your situation at home, or just if you're going to have someone to sleep tonight or something like that, referencing like homelessness or just abuse that happens in the home quite frequently, you're not going to be able to focus on your academics, and you're not going to be able to just feel good in school. So you're going to be worried about your home situation. So if we have more resources for our students to not only be able to get help, be able to report things in a safe way that doesn't put them in danger when they go back home, that would tremendously help student safety and just boost students like just in general. And then not only that, I think that a big problem is locked doors. Like Abby said, I don't believe in the over policing of schools. I think that leads to a lot more issues, and just we've seen like in society in general that over policing is just never the best idea. But I do think that one big thing is locked doors in schools. A lot of times, even like the doors that let you come inside of a school, they're not all always locked, which poses a very big safety threat. So that's something I think we could do with like schools, the school building in general. But everything else I outlined is just like student well being, like mental health and physical well being and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you. What would your plan be to address bullying in our schools? Munachi?
So, like I said earlier, I do want to focus a lot on restorative justice rather than just suspensions. I know some counties have like this thing, like kind of like a student restraining order, but not really. It's more of a no contact program where if there's an issue between two students, they after the issue is resolved, it will not be further talked about between the students or just because when you have like an issue or drama and stuff like that and it just keeps getting talked about, it's able to escalate the situation even more. And because of that, that just increases to the stress and increases to the issue. So not only would I want to introduce a no contact program, the idea of restorative justice comes in by if the victim of the bullying is comfortable, I think that having a bully fully understand what they've done wrong and fully understand their wrongdoings leads to an apology. So if the victim is comfortable, I think we should make sure that um, a bully is able to apologize to their victim because when you're able to apologize for something and truly seem sorry and truly mean it, that shows a sign of growth and it shows that you have really like known what you've done wrong because you can tell when someone is giving a genuine apology and that like saying sorry honestly an apology and understanding your wrongdoings can go a long way. And although that might not always be plausible in every situation because there are a lot of severe bullying cases where you just really wouldn't want to see the person who's been just so rude and cruel to you. Because I know that like I've experienced bullying and I probably like wouldn't want to talk to the person, but it doesn't always have to be an apology, but it's just that that other person understands, acknowledges what they've done wrong, and they learn from it. And not only that, I think that we should also have more I'm trying to say engagement, but that's not the word I'm looking for. The thumb tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. But just more having students more known about the effects of bullying, and just knowing that like it really does harm someone. Because I think that everybody kind of knows it, but nobody really internalizes it as much as they should. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Abhijeet, what will be your plan on addressing bullying in the schools?
So I think what Munachi said was beautiful. As a person who was bullied in middle school, I do realize that a lot of people don't recognize what bullying looks like. We've gone past the whole Disney's being pushed in a locker kind of bullying and more towards verbal online bullying. I know we have a bullying and harassment form, but when there's so much stigma around reporting it, I feel like that's where the issue is. We need teachers to start realizing this and recognizing it earlier because students are not in a position where they feel safe to report issues that are going on. I remember I'm going personal with this one. I remember in eighth grade, there was this one student who didn't jump me, but I was wearing a turban and they pretty much just ripped it off. So at the time, I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell an adult, and as a result, nothing got done. But in a different situation, one of my friends did see this happen and they reported it on my behalf. In that situation, I did realize something did get done. So I feel like the issue isn't around if students are reporting it or not, it's that there's a stigma around it that I can't report it. Like, what if they do something to me, you know? So I feel like teachers need to be more proactive in recognizing it and leading towards actual punishment because a lot of the times bullies are just getting away with a pat on their back or maybe a 1 day vacation home, a suspension. But that's my opinion.
Thank you. What are some qualities that differentiate you from your other candidate? Abhijeet?
I think a lot of me and Munachi's qualities and opinions are the same. I think we're two great candidates, and I wouldn't want to say anything poorly about her. But one thing I think I have is not only my experience in SMOB, but my ability to communicate effectively to the board. I feel like to see actual change, you need to make defensible arguments and be able to make claims that can't be fought. We need to make change that can be actually achievable and realistic instead of false hope for students. So I feel like one of my biggest things that I have is my ability to communicate effectively to the board and make feasible change.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, what are some qualities that differentiate you from your candidate?
Okay. So I also do think that me and Abby have a lot of the same values, and I think he's a great candidate. I think that the main thing that differentiates me and him, or just something that stands out about me, is that I've been known to be very empathetic and known to be able to put myself in someone else's situation. So I think that is a very big thing that a proper leader needs to have, the ability to understand someone else's situation and put themselves in someone else's shoes. And that comes in handy for me because when I'm able to understand someone else's situation, I know exactly how to effectively solve their solution or just advocate for change on their behalf. And to be empathetic, you have to truly know like the best thing you can do to help someone. And I've been in situations where the best thing I can do to help someone is just to listen, or the best thing I can do is to jump in and do something. And to be able to properly assess a room and understand exactly what you could do to help and what you could do to change is not something that everybody's able to do, but I think that I can do that pretty effectively. And I think it will come in very handy when if I were to be elected as SMOB and I have to present issue to the board on the behalf of students who are going through harmful things or just things that are passionate to them and they want to see change on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, many SMOB have appointed their staff and do not use them ever again. What are your plans to use your staff? Munachi?
So I think that you can always find a job for everyone, and I don't think that there's going to be a case where I'm going to hire staff and just not use them. I think that to be able to effectively plan out how to find an issue to an idea, you have to be able to hear multiple people's perspective on it. So anyone who I were to hire, I would definitely listen to their opinion, their perspective, and listen to what they have to say because it's a team effort to make change, and you can't do it based off the merits of one person alone. You have to have the feedback from multiple individuals and multiple people. So not only would I listen to the people I were to hire, I would obviously listen to the voices of students and everything like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, many SMOB leaders have appointed their staff and do not use them ever again. What are your plans on using your staff?
So, having been in these teams twice now, I can say that one person who did it phenomenally was Amira, and I'd want to do something similar to her once where I get a person to represent each and every middle school and high school, as well as have them involved in each policy that is made. I remember freshman year, a big one for us was bag and dress code. And we would be put into teams where basically we would work in groups together to write out new updated policies, how these can work, what are some counter arguments, what is something that can't be done. That way we have a diverse array of perspectives in the decision making process that goes into actually making change. Because one thing about SMOB is you're not representing yourself, but you're representing all 27,000 of us. So having at least one person from each school to represent a tiny little piece of the pizza, to actually get different perspectives and know what each school thinks, and hey, I think that's a good idea, but like, what about this? But that seems like it's kind of counterintuitive to what you're doing. these kinds of open conversations can actually lead to a lot of initiative and change. And we've seen so many counties do this successfully: Montgomery, Fairfax, all of them. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now, we often learn from our failures than our successes. What has been your biggest mistake and or regret as a student? And what did you learn from this? Abhijeet,
What was my biggest failure?
your biggest mistake and or regret as a student.
Biggest regret? Probably not turning in my math homework. I don't know. There's there's obviously a few mistakes. Obviously, no one's perfect. But if I were to think of biggest mistake, probably not taking an opportunity when it's given to me. I feel like a lot of times people see opportunities and they just push it aside, just hey, next day. And typically I'm pretty initiative with that, but I don't know. There's definitely a mistake in there, but I don't know. You got me stumped on this one. Probably my ability to procrastinate sometimes, and it leads to a pile of work. That's all I can say.
Okay, okay. Did you learn anything from it?
Not to procrastinate that C in my grade book for a week. That got me.
Understandable. Now, Munachi, we often learn more from our failures than our successes. What has been your biggest mistake and or regret as a student? And what did you learn from it?
So my biggest mistake as a student, I know in middle school I was quite the shy individual. I never really advocated for myself, which I think is the main mistake I made. Oftentimes something wouldn't be going in the way I wanted to go, and I wouldn't go talk to my teacher myself. And I would want my mom to email, but my mom is like, no, you have to go. You have to go talk for yourself. You have to speak for yourself. Because when you get into the real world, nobody's going to talk for you. You have to do everything generally for yourself. So I think that my biggest mistake, I can't really think of one like current, but I know that in middle school, I was never really able to advocate for myself. But as I grew up, I like became more confident in who I am and just my voice in general. And I was able to like when I had a problem, I would relate it to my teachers or relate it to just anybody and I'd address it. And I think that's what I learned from not advocating for myself in the past. That it's important to speak up on what you want to see changed. I think that's another big reason why I'm passionate about being involved in SMOB and just being elected as SMOB because I know what it's like to not want to speak up and use your voice. And if I were to be able to have this position, I'd be able to encourage others to speak up and use their voice and not do the same thing I did when I was younger. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else you want your voters to know about yourself? Munachi.
So I think that a big thing that happens when you see people running for like a position such as this is that at least I know I do, like if I were to be younger and I saw someone running for this position, I would think like so extremely highly of them and think that they were like just this like overall like perfect person. And I think that that's what you tend to do when you see someone running for like something such as SMOB. And I know that when I first moved here, I had this girl who I really looked up to. I thought she was like so smart and like just so like involved in everything like that. And I didn't realize that she was just like a normal student, a normal individual, just like me. And like as much as she was doing, I could probably do as well. So I think I want everybody to know that like you can do whatever you want to do, and I'm not like a crazy like really um really like up there person. I'm just your average student who's passionate about making change in their community. So yeah, guys, that's kind of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, is there anything else you want your voters to know about yourself?
I like cracking a joke every once in a while. The same way as Munachi, I'm just a student. I procrastinate assignments. I, you know, choose not to go to the school bathroom because I'm scared. I eat a school pizza and I want to throw up. I have the same experiences as everyone. Like, nothing makes me different from being in this county for my whole life, from Matula to Craig to Summers to La Plata to North Point. I've seen it all. I've seen all sorts of students. I've seen all sorts of backgrounds. And I think it's really diversified my perspective on so many things, on so many levels, and it's changed me as a person so many times. So I feel like that's something that not only makes me on the same level as them, I want to be a very, not confrontational, but like, you can walk up to me and ask me a question without feeling like, oh, it's the SMOB, like we gotta lock in. No, I'm just a regular person, and I've been involved in SMOB since the beginning of high school, and I want to continue that to the end. So
Thank you. Now, what is one way that you would like to raise awareness and look and improve mental health for our CCPS students? Abhijeet?
I feel like we are forced. Yeah. Our graduation requirement is 2 health classes, which I feel like a lot of students aren't taking seriously. You take the class, okay, we got the credit, we're over with, let's go. I want to make genuine connections to students' lives each day, whether that's helping adjust the curriculum in health classes where students aren't taking it seriously. Okay, I got the credit, let's go. I got the A 4.0. I want people to realize that we have resources and that, hey, you can go to your counselor. It's okay. It's not, that's their job. You shouldn't feel nervous about, okay, but like, what if they judge me for this? No, you're a student. We understand that you have things going on. You're a person like everyone else. You have your downs, you have your ups. We need to be open about it. We need to speak about it. And I want to get rid of that stigma between students and their counselors and their teachers. Like, it's a audience watching them. I want each school to feel like a safe space where everyone can talk. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, what is one thing you would like to raise awareness and look to improve mental health for our CCPS students?
So I referenced this earlier. A lot of students are scared to talk to their counselor. A lot of students don't want to go talk to their counselor because they are afraid that what they say is not going to be confidential. And I know that there are so many students who are struggling, but they're not talking to anyone about it because they're scared of what will happen after they talk about it, after they voice these struggles. Because as much as when you hear that someone is struggling, you want to take immediate action, but sometimes that's not the best thing to do. Sometimes a student just needs someone to listen to them, and they need to feel like they are safe and able to communicate how they're feeling without the fear of what will happen after. And that's why I said earlier that I want to make sure that guidance counselor meetings are more confidential, and that before we quickly jump to the solution to a problem, we understand truly what the mental health issue may be, and that we make sure the student feels comfortable and able to talk about an issue or a struggle confidentially. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, what resources in your community can you utilize to help bring about change in CCPS? Munachi?
So I think my biggest resource is really my school, because through school and being able to, well, not just my school, but schools in the county, through my school, I'll be able to talk to people and talk to other individuals about what they want to see change and how to change it. And like through talking to students across the county and talking to people across the county, I'm able to hear things that they would like to see changed and different changes that they would like to see made to schools and stuff like that. And I'd be able to act on it and work on it. The biggest resource you have is just the people around you. The easiest way to go about making change is talking to people and putting your energy and effort into it. So my biggest resource would be my school, my community, Charles County as a whole, and just other students. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Abhijeet, what resources in your community could you utilize to help bring about change in CCPS?
Um, what exactly do you mean, like resources, like stuff that we provide, or just in general, just stuff around
Like
me?
in general, like in your
General,
community?
I definitely say community alone. I feel like your peers are probably your biggest change makers near you. I know a lot of students who'd rather listen to their friend about an assignment for help than themselves or a teacher. So I feel like having a community that's willing to talk to you and be interactive and hey, so question 14 is this, right? It brings a lot of collaborativeness in what you do not only in school, but out of school, at school events, at school games, at prom. So when you enter high school just all alone in your own little niche bubbles, at the end of senior year, you're all together, you all know each other, you're all expressing different ideas, and that's how we make change makers. So that's probably my biggest resource.
Thank you. Now, this is our last question. How would you incorporate more middle schoolers into the CCPS environment? Abhijeet.
So this goes back to how I was inspired to run for this role back in 8th grade, post quarantine. But I'd want to again reintroduce the advisory council with a bigger middle school body. I feel like a lot of the time middle schoolers feel unheard. I had this one girl message me and she was super curious about what I wanted to do and how I was going to help her when she gets into high school because she has all these dreams. And I feel like a lot of middle schoolers feel like kids. Okay, so I'm young, you guys don't care. So I definitely want to make a bigger middle school student body, not only so these middle schoolers feel heard, but so the entirety of CCPS's 8 middle schools, I think. I'm pretty sure it's 8. They all feel like, hey, we're not little kids. They actually want to hear us. We've seen Ian Hurd visit these schools and talk to them face to face. We've seen all these SMOBs be interactive with their community and actually engage, and that makes these kids feel more involved, more engaged, be more interactive with CCPS and the board.
Thank you. Now, Munachi, how would you incorporate more middle schoolers into the CCPS environment?
So I think the main way is with the initiative I want to launch, Unmuted. I think that with that, I'd be able to hear the voice of not only just high school students, but a bunch of other middle school students as well, because it gives them a direct way to say change they want to see and just be able to communicate that to me. And in addition to that, I think that people think that middle schoolers can't have big ideas or they don't have big ideas. I feel like people think that about like once you're older, you kind of maybe look down upon people younger than you and just think that you're at a higher intelligence. And while that may be true, that doesn't take away from the big ideas that middle schoolers can still have. And as much as I would like my voice to be heard, I would like their voices to be heard as well because I was in middle school not that long ago and I know all the things that I like all the inconsistencies I saw in the school system and all the things I wanted to see change made about. And I think that's the same for the middle schools we have now. They also have big ideas and they have big ambitions and big things they want to do. So if we were to be able to listen to them and take their input as much as we took the input of older students, we would see a lot of change and see a lot of improvements in school systems. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for great answers tonight. Tonight was very fun and hearing a lot of feedback from you all. I hope you guys took a lot from this. And thank you all for watching. Have a good night.